A very warm welcome, everyone. I, Tina Gurnani, welcome you all to ET Telecom's webinar. To present this webinar, I welcome Mr. Kirti Prakash, Director at Deloitte India. Our esteemed speaker will share valuable insights on the topic Networking and Integrating Business with IoT. There will be a presentation on the topic followed by a question and answer session wherein you may submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into the questions pane of the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. Now I request Mr. Kirti to start the presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Gina. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. I'd like to start by thanking ET for this opportunity. Today, I think we'll cover the entire IoT space from an India context perspective and what we see telcos who are emerging as the orchestrator in delivering this end-to-end solution. Now, the digital space itself has witnessed major transformation and more faster than actually anyone thought. In the last couple of years, IoT has made a huge gain and penetration from a use case perspective. IoT technology itself has the potential to transform India in many ways. The demand for IoT in India is emerging across various industries and sectors, and not just restricted to the utilities or the services portion of it, but also from a connected technology perspective from manufacturing, automotive, transportation, and logistics. Now, everyday customers are already using IoT-enabled smart devices, either by knowingly or unknowingly, whether it's an IoT technology that's in play, as small as probably a wearable smartwatch, which basically gauges your health and wellness, tracking devices for personal safety, and the emerging smart homes category, which is almost becoming norm now in most of the high-rise apartments. In addition to this, the government whose flagship initiatives like the Digital India and Make in India feature IoT as the key enabler for public utility and services. Now, in today's session of networking integrating business with IoT in India, I'll be walking through in the next 30 to 40 minutes the IoT market in India, where it's rapidly growing. What is the near-term value that the analysts and the pundits are expected the value to reach in the next 1 year? What are the various government initiatives which is further fueling the growth and the importance of IoT in our market? What are the current state in terms of the IoT market and the influence of 5G that it would have? What are the potential roles the telecom operators can play, considering the connectivity and the infrastructure that the telecom operators have built in will be the backbone for the connected technology industry. And next, subsequently, we'll also dwell upon some elements of impact of IoT on the telecom operators, how it would benefit them, how this could be a game changer for them, more importantly. What are the monetization elements for IoT? Now, the last but not the important one is basically the ecosystem. Now, gone are the days where everyone is building, and a current ecosystem is being built around that, and how each of the players are converging together to deliver the end solutions. So we're going to touch upon elements of the referent architecture, what are the various IoT strategies that's in play, who are the major players in the IoT ecosystem, and with some use cases to end with. Moving on. Sorry, just a technical glitch. Moving on, I think the Indian IoT market overview is quite strong enough. And as can be seen, the growth is immense, right? And we are expecting roughly about it to be a $9 billion market in 2020, with roughly about 2 billion devices connected to the internet. And this, they're envisaging to further grow it to about 25 billion connected devices by 2025 with the 5G rollout and the number of use cases increasing, be it on the smart healthcare, be it on the connected industry, be it on the smart cities initiatives that the government has taken. Now, the use cases also, if you look at it, majorly it is divided between manufacturing and the utilities portion, which roughly constitutes about 45% of the use cases across the globe. And that's the story is same also in India. With more users coming online and using smart devices, India is expected to have 1.9 billion devices connected, which is more than the current mobile connections if you say so. Further to that, even in terms of the smartphone penetrations with the Indian market, a good chunk of about 400 to 500 million customers are still not using smartphones but are on feature phones. And if these customers are also come onto the smartphone bandwagon, the opportunities is unimaginable. The volume is really high, right? So from that perspective, it's very promising. And the people who could basically get into this, figure out the strategies, get a good partner ecosystem, get a good strategy in place, and the technological element are going to succeed and can be successful going forward from a perspective of delivering the end-to-end IoT solutions. What are the key drivers from that perspective? The emerging number also shows saying that the vehicles, in terms of the connected vehicles, that the government initiatives, the smart cities, the smart healthcare, there are a number of initiatives, that the government is initiating. Apart from that, the use cases from a end customer perspective or from a smart manufacturing perspective, there's a plethora of opportunities. However, the growth also comes with its own challenges, be it on the security and the privacy concerns, lack of uniform standards, technology standards across various verticals of the IoT applications, concerns about data privacy, lack of frameworks and policies. Some elements are being addressed by the government, and we'll speak about that in the next section. Now, some of the government initiatives that we see, be it the National Digital Communication Policy, or be it the Department of Electronics and Information Technology, who have initiated various initiatives in terms of simplifying licensing, readying some of the frameworks on the emerging technologies, be it on the machine-to-machine communications or be it on AI, and also including the IoT-based applications. There is a try recommendation also in terms of what should be there should be a separate spectrum that should be allocated specifically for M2M services. Not only that, it is also not mandatory to use only domestically manufactured SIMs in M2M. So they have eased even that particular element as well. Now that's the element of even the government which is taking it very seriously. Now with the $5 trillion economy that India is trying to achieve, and which is predominantly either driven by a services economy or from the agriculture economy, manufacture needs to catapult and needs to start contributing to reach that particular target. And that's where smart manufacturing and connected industry is very essential. And even government is pushing to that effect, be it on the Digital India concept or the Make in India concept. Some of these elements will drive and will enable the entire IoT ecosystem to take it further. Apart from that, just to give you a glimpse in terms of the smart cities mission itself, they have proposed an investment of roughly US dollar 30 billion by 2021-2022 in 100 odd cities that's been earmarked and shortlisted. Closely, there are roughly about 2,500 projects already in vogue, with an initiated investment of about $305 million. Apart from that, there is also a IoT Center of Excellence as part of the Digital India initiative that has been formed by NASSCOM, DT, and EarNet. These are all good elements to look at it. Apart from this, DT is launching its first draft on the IoT policy document in 2016, in line with the government's vision as well. Now, if you look at it, the policy framework is coming together, the regulatory authority is coming together. There is a huge demand from an IoT perspective, and elements of basically utilizing from a particular end-to-end solution provider with the right ecosystem will enable telecom operators or anyone who could play that orchestrator role to a successful business generator in that sense. Just to give an example, GE invested roughly about $200 million in a concept called Brilliant Factory, which they set it up to produce diverse products, be it from a jet engine, parts, or locomotive components for 4 different GE businesses under one roof. And this was a concept which was being explored for the first time. And this was set up in Pune in Mumbai and across, I think, 67 acres of land, and where 1,500 workers will share the same production line, support infrastructure, and the equipment. It could be 3D printers, it could be laser inspection technology. And apart from making the jet engines and the locomotive technology, they'll also assemble wind turbines and build water treatment units, which will cater to basically oil and gas and the agricultural industries. The plant will allow to quickly adjust not only the production as demand comes in, but also use the same people and the space. Now, this is possible because the factory equipment are speaking to the computers, are talking to each other over industrial internet. And this is a revelation in itself. And this fits very well into the PM Modi's Make in India campaign as well. So this is on the smart and connected industry point of view. Apart from this, another initiative taken by Apollo Hospitals in Chennai, where they have set up a concept called EICU, a remote intensive care unit to cater to the remote places in Calcutta. And the hubs are in basically the hospitals in Chennai, Hyderabad, and Calcutta. And the telemedicine centers could be in the remotest districts possible or smaller towns, where these will act as a spoke offering intensive care unit. Now, with the dearth of doctors in our country and the healthcare infrastructure itself is a challenge, these are the way forward where IoT is enabled to basically reach out to the farthest of the nooks and corners of India. So this is just to give some of the use cases that's currently in exploration and some of them which are implemented. Going ahead, some elements of where do we stand on the 5G and the IoT market. Now, the earliest rollout of 5G in India is expected only by 2020 and the commercial operation sometime around 2021 or 2022. Recently, there was an article also by Ericsson regarding this. Now, most of the companies, the telecom operators, are in the experimentative mode and they have done their initial testing. The Airtel, Vodafone, Idea, and the Jio are all invested in the commercial narrowband IoT technologies, which will go hand in hand with their 4G infrastructure. Now, operators have opted for narrow bands as higher bands have low coverage range and NB-IoT can coexist with your 2G, 3G, and the 4G mobile networks. Now, if you look at it from a perspective of what is required, the telecom companies are taking a partner-led approach because it's quite impossible to build everything on your own, and we'll speak more about it in the subsequent sections where we see what is required to basically deliver an IoT solution. For example, telecom companies, while they're taking the partnership approach, Jio has also collaborated with the likes of Samsung and Microsoft. Vodafone Idea example, for example, with PTC, which is the ThingWorks, which is an IoT platform that they've developed with PTC. They have tied up with Kia Motors on the smart vehicles portion of it, with IBM from a cloud perspective. Airtel has partnered with a US-based mobile tech startup called DataMe. Now, this partnership is aimed at integrating DataMe's accounting, split billing, analytics module into Airtel's in-house IoT solution. BSNL, on the other hand, has announced collaborations with Ericsson, Unlimit, SoftBank, NTT Japan Communications to develop 5G and IoT related services. So there is a clear-cut laid out roadmap and strategy in place for all the major operators in the country. Now, if you look at it, the major operators have opted for narrowband IoT, but there are other technology standards also in place. So going ahead, NB-IoT technology works in a licensed spectrum, as most of you in the audience might be aware of it, and requires 4G technology. Whereas LoRaWAN on the other hand, offers flexibility in this regard, and these must pretty much operate on an unlicensed band. Analysts do believe that NB-IoT being licensed would require a monthly recurring fee, which is not the case in LoRaWAN technologies and can be deployed privately without a recurring fee concept and not requiring much of capex and can be subscribed as a service from the public operator at a fraction of the cost. LoRaWAN and GSM penetrate very differently in buildings. Right? The LoRaWAN penetrates much deeper, but NB-IoT will have play in areas where more throughput is required, as can be seen in terms of the maximum data rate. And the life cycle for the devices should be lesser compared to a LoRaWAN technology. Apart from this, we believe in the Indian market, both the technology and its use cases will coexist in a short to medium term. As such, there is no conflict between both these technologies, and we expect it to coexist, and that there could be a combined use of both the licensed and unlicensed LPWA technologies. Now, the cost and ease of deployment used in an unlicensed band are the key benefits for adopting LoRaWAN technology in India. The infrastructure that you require to deploy new towers and the base stations for IoT may not be a encouraging offering for telcos. And LoRaWAN on the other side can be deployed with a cheap infrastructure to fill in the dead spots in the cities to have a seamless connectivity. NB-IoT in India specifically lacks the ecosystem for devices. The device ecosystem is a challenge, despite the telcos taking a partner-led approach to build a complete ecosystem on this element. Now, mind you, this device ecosystem is a challenge not only from an NB-IoT perspective, but even from a LoRaWAN perspective, and it's across the globe, and not necessarily only from India. In order to overcome this, most of the telcos have partnered. For example, VIL currently has about 25 plus partners, and they are expected to double it soon. It seeks to build use cases around the new technology. And mind you, these partners are predominantly either startups or small medium enterprises that can bring the capabilities around hardware and software to enable the NB-IoT use cases. Airtel too is doing the same thing across the thing. Now, if you look at it, both the technologies have its own advantages and disadvantages, and it's actually the use case which will define in what kind of use case, what kind of technology that needs to be adopted. Having said this, Tata Communications, which is TCTS, and another operator called Sendra have adopted the LoRaWAN technologies. Tata Communications, for example, have deployed this in roughly about 45 cities and is expected to complete its expansion by 2019 across 80 cities. It has invested roughly about 700 crores in this particular space. Sendra, on the other hand, which is headquartered in Delhi, has rolled this out in 42 cities and it's expected to expand it to 60 cities by end of 2019. Now, some of the use cases that they are looking at is basically smart parking, smart metering, smart buildings, smart trackers, smart bins from a garbage collection and garbage management perspective, which is quite essential in a smart city environment. Whereas on the other hand, both VIL or Airtel have done the initial testings in multiple cities and have also rolled out some of the use cases, be it in the smart vehicle segment or the healthcare segment. And from a perspective of Geo, they have tested it in Mumbai and they're the plan to launch the commercial operations by Jan 2020. Now, Geo alone is targeting roughly about 1 billion NB-IoT LTE network connections by end of 2020, which is quite aggressive, and even in terms of the numbers, it's quite voluminous. Now, in India, companies have begun rolling out some of these services, and hopefully we should see some sort of a commercial operations by early or mid of 2020, depending upon whether it will be retail-centric use cases or it will be enterprise-centric use cases. Moving on. Like we have seen in the slides earlier, it's essential that the telecom operators actually benefit from this particular element. And this is a new altogether business model. Now, gone are the days where money making is through connecting people. I think it's connecting people and connecting things and connecting people and things. I think that's the way forward. With this, there are three potential roles that the telecom operation can play. One is a very foundation effort, which is basically providing connectivity, supports the basic IoT functionalities with core capabilities in place. Or I could be a service enabler where I could provide the tools and the services and be an orchestrator in the ecosystem. And the third one is be an end-to-end solution provider, which is what I think most of the telcos are eyeing. And they're trying to build that ecosystem where they can deliver the end-to-end solutions and also have a specialization in each of the verticals that they would want to concentrate in. This will ensure monetization and also the future revenues for the telcos. This could be the business model for the telcos of the future. As connecting people will move into a basic service utility element, I think connected technologies and the connected devices are the way forward for the telcos of the future. Having said that, the impact of IoT and the telecom operators could be multiple. Now, the telecom industry can basically leverage this either by providing as simple as data analytics, provide business insights by applying analytical tools on data generated from its large consumer base. For example, Telefonica in Europe, they have a concept called as connectivity hub, where they have created this big data business unit called Luca. It uses tools such as Smart Steps, Smart Digits, which utilizes the data from its customers to generate actionable insights across the various sectors. And these guys, in order to put this together, they have partnered roughly with about, I think, if I'm not wrong, about 300 plus partners in the overall ecosystem. And the use cases vary from public utility and services, government to citizen services, government to government related services, smart vehicles, smart tourism, and the list is endless, right? And this is something that we can look up to in terms of an inspiration, in terms of what we can do here. Apart from that, the LPWAN technologies will further enable this and enable the telecom operators. For example, as we have spoken earlier, Tata Communications has adopted the LoRaWAN technology and is planning to deploy the LoRaWAN network across India to provide the last mile IoT connectivity. Location services is another important aspect, which is emerging out a very clear winner and has already moved from a experimental horizon to a more of an immediate and a need-based horizon. So end user devices such as smartphone with proximity centers can be used to create those location services. For example, Polte are leveraging innovative positioning technologies of IoT, and they themselves call as something called as leader in CLOC, which is cloud location over cellular. Mind you, here they are not dependent on any sort of technology, but they leverage on your existing LTE, 4G and 5G networks to locate the IoT enabled devices in real time basis. In addition to this, they don't use GPS or other related sensors, which means it's a very cost effective way of basically providing location services and also doesn't drain your battery of your mobile devices. Now, the various such use cases across the globe, which is currently being explored, are being mastered. Apart from this, Some of the elements that the telecoms can also concentrate is autonomous vehicles, which is a big factor if you look at it in the West, and also in some of the South African countries where telematics has gained a big market and has penetrated in terms of the overall commute experience linked to your insurers, multiple elements, be it in terms of content delivery, be it in terms of service and maintenance of your vehicle, be it in terms of tracking it, providing road assistance services. Depending upon what convergent use cases that I can think of and I can deliver on the platform, the possibilities are huge. Ericsson himself have launched an IoT accelerator program that focuses specifically on the driverless cars and the connected traffic ecosystem. This could also be applied in terms of monitoring remote data storage sites where vulnerabilities are unforeseen. It could be fire, it could be earthquake, etc. So Vodafone, for example, in Europe uses IoT satellite solution which enables organizations to connect assets with limited connectivity, enabling safety against unforeseen circumstances, such as ATM automatic backup during natural disasters, connectivity during basic connectivity during natural disasters, so on and so forth. Apart from this, equipment monitoring. For example, I might have a remote site which is located, which is not manned all the time, so probably it's not possible to man the site all the time. In those elements, the remote telecommunication towers contain a plethora of auxiliary equipments which can be connected through frequent monitoring elements and functionalities. In those cases, by installing IoT sensors, the equipment itself can provide real-time monitoring, reducing operating costs. For example, Tata Communications has launched a Move IoT Connect and assets tracking solution that enables global connectivity for all IoT devices. And the list goes on. You could look at it from a physical security perspective in terms of installation of IoT enabled devices to monitor it. You could use that from a personal safety perspective. You have to track the elderly ones or your child within the radius that you would define, and that communicates back to you through an app. A lot of mining companies, especially in South Africa, they use these IoT enablers to track the vehicles, monitor the load of the vehicles, any pilferages, so on and so forth. Insurance companies are offering products based on driver behaviors, which is again enabled through your telematics and your IoT and connected technologies. Content delivery while you're using your vehicle. The opportunities are plethora, and convergence is the way forward. And these are some of the use cases that we can speak about amongst various other things. With all these possibilities, we need to be mindful in terms of how do we monetize it, and not only monetize it, but how do we basically monetize it in a way my revenue throughput is also beneficial for the platform provider. In that sense, in general, clients of telecom operators in the IoT space can be categorized as three elements. One is basically a solution provider. Second is an end user business. The third one is basically the end consumers. Depending on the target segments, telecom operators offer different IoT services across different element of the value chain. It could differ as basic as just providing connectivity. So let's say, for example, in case of solution providers, I can offer different IoT components, including hardware, including connectivity platform, including an end user application, all through bundle in a package for the business and the consumers. Some of these players, they source IoT connectivity from telecom operators or from resellers. So here I'm basically just providing connectivity to this end solution providers, and they are basically the orchestrator here. In end user business cases, I can either purchase a bundle solution, including connectivity and the end solution itself. And this is where the telecom operators can be the end solution provider, and he could be the orchestrator. When it comes to the end consumers, they could buy bundled end solutions. For example, retailers, supermarkets, your smart home solutions, your smart tracking devices, smart wearables, your content delivery, so on and so forth. Now, the use cases, depending upon which customer segment that the telecom operators are looking into and the delivery that needs to happen, differs and varies. In that sense, operators can be a wholesaler, where operator generally will focus on its core business in providing connectivity. It's very easy to scale and the requirement of investment is very low. However, I am not a big fan of this. There are three downsides to this, because one is basically providing only connectivity to the customers is not an attractive proposition to them in comparison to their bundle service. Second, my top line might grow, but I might end up actually losing out on my bottom line. Emergence of new pricing models might again create another price war, which will further lower the ARPUs, and as such the industry itself is basically suffering from a very low ARPU scenario currently. So it can become an entirely aggressive market. Okay. So in that sense, operator restricting themselves as a wholesaler is at least not a useful proposition going forward. That could be one of them, but not the only. Second is where operators can be a end-to-end IoT enabler. Okay, and this is where basically a new domain of telecom operators is, and it's predominantly dominated by your technology players. But I need to basically see how I can partner with them, create that ecosystem. So in this segment, operators do not develop their own IoT platforms. Okay, but they only resell. They would orchestrate. They would enhance the existing platforms. They will work on the use cases. They'll work with the technology players to deliver those use cases, and then they monetize the potential from those respective use cases. However, two benefits are potential to increase connectivity market share in terms of competitive connectivity market: starter kits, developer APIs, which might be more attractive than others. Identify those solution providers that can be onboarded onto your platform as resale partners or as key participants in the overall operators IoT ecosystem. Very, very essential. And as I see, most of the telecom operators in India are trying to play in this particular space. And they are trying to get the strategy in place. They're trying to create the use cases, right? Trying to get the various partners into the ecosystem, and so on and so forth. And there are enough examples, as you can see on the slide itself, where SK Telecom has emerged out, Verizon is doing it, Deutsche Telekom is doing it. Even the some of the examples that I quoted earlier, even the Indian telecom operators are looking towards that element. This could be a lucrative and the future business model for the telecom operators. However, from an element of it, what could be seen is basically how do we basically bring this all together, which means quite essential, I need to have an ecosystem built, which takes us to our next topic, which is an important topic in terms of what is an IoT ecosystem made of. I think first and foremost, at the backdrop of all these technologies and connections, data is is the primary commodity that I'm trying to harness here. The information that is generated from these connected technologies, or the value loop, as we may call it as, presents a complex set of choices and challenges that cannot be addressed by a traditional IT architecture at all. The information value loop needs to be represented in a way that can be seen from what the data is created by the sensors, how is it communicated through the network, where can it be aggregated, how can it be analyzed, so that it can initiate a particular action. It could be augmenting a human behavior, or it could be recommending a particular behavior to the human in terms of what should be the next course of action. It could be an augmented intelligence in terms of a recommendation that can be provided to the humans or to another machine on the other side, be it on the upstream or the downstream, which could basically deliver the end solution. Now, mind you, this is where I think most of the people get it wrong. But however, designing a successful strategy for the IoT, it would require a combination of behavioral economics, data analytics, and IoT technology to create and capture value. And this is not an easy job and cannot be achieved by one particular entity or an organization. If you look at it, what are we typically trying to do? The data that is created by the sensors are basically, I need a network element to basically communicate it. I need an integration element to basically aggregate it. I need a augmented intelligence unit which could analyze it. And subsequent to that, I need a intelligence element to basically throw me a throughput in terms of what could be the next course of action. It could be from a edge computing, fog computing, which could be defined by a local analysis with a human intervention or without a human intervention. Further to this, what could a typical IoT reference architecture look like? If you look at this slide, there's a lot of sensing happening, there's a lot of transmitting happening, there's a lot of manipulation happening, there's a lot of sense that is being made out in terms of, and various platforms coming together in an integrated platform. As I said, sensors attached to the things create the data, they trigger the flow of information. Network using the networking equipment to communicate data from the sensors and connect it up to the internet. The integration layer will manage the sensor and the network elements. The augmented intelligence element will take the raw data, make sense out of it, and distribute it to the downstream systems or applications to analyze it and derive actionable insights. And the augmented behavior, for example, your edge computing or fog computing, can deliver an action with or without a human intervention, depending upon the use case that we are speaking about. Now, this itself is a very complex architecture and different things coming into the picture, which means the various players that I would require, not only from a technology player perspective, but also from a service provider perspective. Mind you, technology and service providers are using historical strength to rope in customers for IoT solutions. Now, based on the strategy, we can categorize into largely about 6 main buckets, as you can see on the slide. One is who are basically the business application. These providers use their business applications along with their IoT platforms to meet demand for vertical specific market solutions for their customers. Then there are cloud players. These players use their core cloud capabilities to differentiate themselves in the IoT space. Then there are OEM players. These players differentiate themselves based on the mix of both the hardware and the software capabilities of the IoT platform. Then there are operational technology players, the OT vendors as we call. These are traditional OT vendors that manufacture and service the key components of the customer equipment. Then there are vertical specific focus, vertical market players specific to an industry, to a sector, and sometimes even specific use cases. These players have developed technical capabilities for the IoT platform that focuses on the vertical market. Then there are embedded players. These enterprise usually do not sell any sort of IoT platforms, but they use it to supplement and enhance their vertical market capabilities. Now, players are trying to develop capabilities and move beyond their core capabilities and to meet demand across different verticals. Either they try to develop it or they basically establish it and partner with various players across the ecosystem. And as you can see, these are some of the prominent players in the ecosystem, be it on the business application cloud players. Some of them are common across multiple elements. Some of them might have capabilities depending upon what use case that we are speaking about across the multiple ecosystem platforms that we are speaking about. Very few probably are having a play in all of the verticals that we are seeing in terms of the ecosystem. Moving on with this, I'm sure, I think one we have spoken about what is required from an element of the IoT platforms, how telecom players can play that an orchestrated role and harness this entire possibility of the digital revolution that is taking place in the IoT segment, how they can bring together the various ecosystem players that is required to deliver the end solution and not just remain by providing the basic connectivity, but be an end-to-end solution provider. With that, I would like to take the crowd through some of the ongoing uh, uh, smart city solutions, which is almost the talk of the town now in terms of one, it could be from a GS mapping of the entire city by the Ahmedabad Municipal Corporation, waste segregation at the source by Pune Municipal Corporation, low carbon transport from NMT infrastructure in Nanded, green building initiatives from Pimpri Chinchwad, ICT enabled health records in Gujarat, smart water management through GIS mapping of all pipelines, call center connectivity to the customers in Bombay, smart policing in one of the localities in Bengaluru, where they have basically tied up with his entity called Lookup, and basically they are delivering or enable public connect through chat system, diligent traffic enforcement through handheld devices again in Bengaluru, where the entire lookout in terms of the history of any violations by the rider or the driver with a centralized server where they can basically look up and basically also charge using the handheld devices. Now, some of these use cases, if you look at it, couldn't be imagined earlier, right? And we also spoke about the remote healthcare initiatives that was floated by the Apollo hospitals, which is a which is a boon for our nation in terms of where we have dearth of health infrastructure and the dearth of doctors at the remote places. And these are some of the companies that we see from who are delivering some of the smart city solutions. Now, with this, I think it's pretty conclusive enough to say saying that you do not have to build everything on your own. I strongly believe, I think convergence is the way forward. We need to have a strategy in place, tiering of partner in place. There are multiple use cases where people have explored. What is the strategy for me to onboard these particular partners? How can we benefit each other? What should be my revenue model? How could I monetize this opportunity? And anyone who can get this can tap into the 25 billion connectivity devices that is expected to be in vogue by 2025. With this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you everyone for patiently hearing me out, and I'm open for questions now. Over to you, Tina.
Thank you so much for that insightful session. We will now be taking questions. And the first question that we have is what opportunities do micro players or small scale players have in IoT?
I think a lot of microservices are going to be way forward, at least from a end consumer delivery, right? Be it from, let's say, for example, one quick thing that I can think of is basically kids going to the education and in terms of school, where parents want to monitor in terms of what is his or her progress, what has been taught during that day in the school. With the nuclear families in place and in both the mom and dad are working, they hardly have any time in terms of monitoring this. Imagine where I could provide a microservice and connect this particular use case and saying that, what was the curriculum that was covered during the day, what did the kid do, did he or she play, or did he or she was involved in some of the extracurricular activities, and what could be the potential things that the parents needs to concentrate on that particular day with the child. This is one example. The second example is from microservices is a lot many times, which we quite often enough, which we find is basically missing elderly persons due to the health conditions, be it Alzheimer's, be it any other medical conditions that they are going through, where they hardly recall saying that, where they're going, not in a stable mind. How do I use this use case through a smart wearable device, which can be owned by this elderly person, and where I could create some elements of connectivity back through an app or a notification? It could be even an SMS, where minute this person basically moves out of the defined radius, can be notified and and the next course of action can be triggered, which could be either notifying your neighbor or the nearest relative of yours or your own kith and kin in terms of to basically address to that particular concern that has emanated. So micro players and microservices definitely have a play. Like I told, even a lot of telecom operators are also concentrating on tying up with not the large organizations, but of course in terms of the platform that they bring in, but a lot of small players in the microservices players and the startup ecosystem in terms of developing those use cases. Hope I answered your question. Tina?
Thank you so much for answering that. Our next question is also somewhat on the similar lines. The viewer is asking, what opportunities do small CRM companies have in the IoT space? Can you give a few instances for convergence and monetization?
Yeah. See, I think, like I said, frankly speaking, I've not come across where the converged billing has emerged for these kind of services. Now, if you look at it, I do not see any plans which is very specific to, or a SIM which is being given up with a specific plan for connecting devices, right? And you will see next year with some of these telecom operators, they would come up with some of these plans, and they would also have an element of basically how do I manage the billing portion of it. Also spoke about where Airtel is started with one of these US-led tech startup, where they have tried to address some of these concerns, right? And they had the use case over there. I think more and more the CRM is beneficial. Mind you, one is basically these large operators or large platform players, providing the service. Ultimately, when it reaches bottom layer, from the end user perspective or the end service provider perspective, they would require a CRM, right? I need to have a unique customer ID created for that. What are the various bundle services that is being provided to this particular customer? Can I get into an element of saying that, one home solutions? uh, what How can I deal with this, right? So from that element, CRM is at the center of it, which could play as an integration layer from a front end perspective, where I need to connect with my customer, from a backend perspective where that particular data can be used for my billing, and then basically from a perspective of providing the end-to-end connectivity provided from a network element portion of it. So CRM is definitely an important element. But having said that, uh, uh, this could be a white space where a lot of companies need to concentrate on in terms of whether my existing CRM platforms, would it cater to the requirement of an IoT scenario or an IoT use case or an IoT products and services that I'll be selling. It's very different. So you can figure out the opportunity from this itself. Definitely, there's a big play for the CRM players in that sense. Tina?
Thank you so much for answering that. Our next question is, with most of the telecom operators facing losses, how can IoT help telcos maximize their revenues?
I think the entire topic was on that. Uh, I am of a firm believer, at least I think a lot of analysts have also said it, saying that the future of the telco is one in terms of not just providing basic connectivity in terms of connecting the people, but also connecting people to things and things to people and things to things, right? So that's going to be the way forward. Let's just to give you a stat. We are saying roughly about 1 billion mobile connections as of now, here and there. With that, if I look at it, the estimated connected devices itself is going to overshot in next 1 year, which is about roughly about 2 billion devices, what they're expecting. And from a perspective of 2025, it's going to shoot up to 25 billion devices. And mind you, here, like I said, if I end up being just a connectivity provider, that's going to be a challenging thing. May not be a interesting proposition, and in terms of the investment that the telcos have to make. And that's where, if you look at it, most of the telcos are basically playing at the level playing field of providing an end-to-end solution and delivering an use case, rather than just providing the connectivity services that they have been doing as of now. And the strategy also around that, if you look at it very carefully, is to build that particular ecosystem so that they could be the orchestrator and bringing the various players in the ecosystem onto their platform. So and this goes, I think, across all the three operators, the major operators, and BSN is yet to enter into this. Uh, but the other three major operators, that's what they have been doing. TCTS, on the other hand, is also trying to tap the particular opportunities on the unlicensed bands. Sendra is a new entrant into this, where they have adopted the LoRaWAN technologies. I believe if we play it carefully with the right strategy and the right technology platform and a good use case, the future looks very bright for the telecom companies and how we can monetize this particular opportunity and the revolution that we are seeing. So I'm very hopeful and also confident, saying that this could be one of the major stepping stones for the telecom companies to come out of the current slump era that they're currently going through. Yeah.
Thank you for answering that. We will now be taking our last question due to time constraints. So the last question that we have is, what kind of ARPU do IoT players have in regions like US and Europe?
Sorry, currently I do not have that data with me. But like I said, I think more in terms of an ARPU, uh, I look at it from a bundle service element. Okay, some of it could be as good as could be based on outcome based. Okay, for example, uh, let's say I'm delivering the solution to the mining company, right? So one is basically providing the basic elements of your hardware, your firmware, your middleware, and then basically the solution itself. In terms of what these multiple things that has come together to deliver the data, what solution I can deliver and make sense to that mining company, right? If I look at it, one element is basically, can I do an outcome-based billing? For example, uh, if I lower your pilferage by an X percentage, right? This is the X fees that I'm going to charge. For example, let's say that mining company is going through a 20 million pilferage loss on a year-on-year basis. I will charge saying that I'll charge you X amount of that particular money to you. One is an outcome based. Second is basically where I have created an ecosystem where I have created an ecosystem uh, uh, for various, for example, let's say telematics, right? where I can basically connect with my automobile, the OEM, who is the car manufacturer, to help him with analyzing the health of the vehicle, the driver behavior, and so on and so forth. When is it due for service and things around that. Second is basically I can bring on the map providers to basically provide that positioning services or location services, so on and so forth. Third is I can bring in a general insurer provider to say saying that depending upon the driver behavior, the premium can be fixed. Here's another player that can come in. I can bring in my content delivery platforms onto it, depending upon how I can make a pleasurable experience for the driver while the commute is happening, or the passenger while the commute is happening. Now, if you look at it, I've converged various multiple use cases into one particular platform to deliver an end-to-end solution for a customer, be it on the entertainment side, be it on the insurance side, be it on the service portion of it, be it on the health of the vehicle element of it. Now I can monetize this from all these players in terms of either based on the number of customers that I can attract and give a throughput to all these players and charge a particular fee from these players, or I can just charge that particular fee from providing a platform, right? Now, I unfortunately do not have that kind of a data in terms of what it is, but these are the various business models that is currently under exploration and basically what people are doing, right? Some of the elements is basically where there are welfare schemes, right? For example, your garbage management and other things. How would you monetize it, right? And that is again dependent on the number of devices that you would have given, number of connectivity, lower downtime, various KPIs and SLAs that you would basically agree with the government agencies, right? So the business models is very different, and that's the reason why I said the CRM needs to be different. My billing system needs to be very different, the way I look at it. And the monetization needs to be very carefully drafted out in this case. Otherwise, I might end up actually incurring losses while delivering these services. That's my answer to your question. Tina, over to you.
Thank you so much for answering that. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take all the questions due to time constraints. If you have any other questions, please send them at editor@etttelecom.com. Thank you, Mr. Kirti, for sharing valuable insights on the topic networking and integrating business with IoT. It was an engaging and insightful talk, and hope all the participants have enjoyed the session. The recording of this webinar will be made available on etttelecom.com. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.